3, 2, 1. Welcome to The Peaceful Truth, the podcast where we talk about everything from women empowerment, feminism, and everything in between. You are joined by your host, Kenzie Meekbeck, and we have a guest today on today's episode. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello there. My name is Kim Nguyen. Let's see. Your sister is one of my best friends and has the cutest baby. That's how I'll introduce myself.
Who was on the podcast the other week, by the way.
So cute. Pepper is the best.
She is.
Okay, let's see. So I am turning 31 this month, which is
You are?
crazy. Yeah, I know, right?
Girl, you look beautiful.
Oh my God. I had someone tell me that I looked like 23 the other day.
You do.
And I was like, oh my God.
You're going to get carded for the rest of your life.
Basically, it's those Asian genes, you know?
Yeah.
And let's see, I did a double degree in electrical engineering and computer science at the University of Washington. You probably can't tell on the podcast, but I am Asian. I'm a child of Vietnamese immigrants. So my options were doctor, lawyer, engineer. So I picked engineer.
Perfect.
But honestly, was always kind of like, was doing it because I was like good at math and kind of competitive, but like always kind of knew, like wasn't really sure if that was kind of the path that I wanted to go down.
Right.
But you know, you do what you're supposed to do. So ended up at Microsoft for the last 6 years and kind of did two different career paths there. I was engineering for half the time, and about a year and a half into engineering, I was like, oh no, I don't think I want to do this. I'm like 25. This is all I've known for the last like 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's like kind of an identity crisis, too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for sure had my quarter life crisis and then decided to take up a career in recruiting.
Which you killed.
That was had such a great time. So I basically like traveled all over the United States, recruiting college students to come back and work at Microsoft, literally making dreams come true. It was really, really wonderful. And then I kind of was like, maybe I should give engineering another shot. Like, I spent basically my whole life like working towards this. Did that for about a year, and then I was like, yeah, confirmed. Maybe not right now. I don't know if it was the team or the product or what was going on, but I was like, nah, like this doesn't feel right either. So actually this past summer, I decided to do another 180 and actually just joined the advising staff at the University of Washington in the computer science school, and I'm their first ever career counselor.
Wow. So literally your job is inspiring people to follow their dreams.
Basically, like my job is to pump the kids up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm supposed to call them students because not all of them are kids, although
Right.
they all feel like kids to me no matter what age they are.
But you always pump people up. I feel like that's your personality. You're always like, hell yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Yeah, I definitely think I don't know why that's definitely something that I just feel inspired to do. Like when, tell people that I love how much I love them and how awesome I think they are. I think that's really important to, express that to the people that are important to you.
That's really cool. So I think it's kind of cool that you went from like engineering. It's kind of meta what I'm thinking about right now is you went from engineering, you had an identity crisis, but now your whole job is finding other people's identities. And do you feel like now this is kind of your dream career? And do you feel like making that move helped you get to that path? I
mean, it's definitely incredibly fulfilling. And I think that I definitely relate a lot to the students that I meet with. And I think for me, by sharing my story, the introduction was like a very glossed over, obviously there were some real low lows. There were some really, really high highs. And, a lot of times where you're kind of just questioning like, hey, like, am I making the right decision? Like, what am I doing here? Like, it's such a grind kind of being in the engineering world, especially when you're at a competitive school like UW. And so I think for me, it's just kind of reminding them that like, hey, like, it's a process. Like life is a process. Figuring out your career is a process. You're not like the decision that you make isn't a make or break thing. And just to think of it as like an opportunity to explore, decide what you like, what you don't like. But I think so often we have this pressure of like, what you choose to major in is like going to make it or break it, or where you choose to do your first job is going to make it or break it for you. Like it can like ruin your whole life, And I think for the most part, like the less that the students can kind of feel that way about these decisions, the healthier they can go about making these decisions.
Yeah. And we just had an episode a few weeks ago where we talk about that. You can have multiple career paths, have multiple dreams throughout your life. And that's kind of what, if you've read Michelle Obama's book, is kind of about a little bit, where she like has that identity crisis. She thought a lawyer was like the ultimate success in her brain. And so when she became one and then she actually sat down, she's like, oh, I don't know if I love it.
And it's so tough too, because I mean, the amount of years that it takes to get to that place and then to realize, oh no, like
what did I do?
This isn't what I want. And you just invested all this time.
Yeah.
Like, that can be really hard to kind of accept and process for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So you also have some side hustles, right? You like eventually are going to, you had a really successful blog. Are you going to continue this or?
Yeah. So the blog that I had was kind of like a lifestyle fashion blog, kind of from like, I think at the beginning of college, I was just really into taking photos. I was really into putting together outfits. And I think I was one of those late bloomers. So like in high school, I was kind of that jock, kind of like I played soccer and I literally would just wear my soccer outfit to
You're
work.
like, perfect.
Yeah, I was like, great, I don't have to change. And then kind of when I got into college, I realized like, dang, like the soccer body's kind of awesome. And kind of started just kind of exploring like, dressing myself and feeling good and that sort of thing. And I just had always like really been into fashion and style. And then that combination of like being interested in photography, like the natural progression was like, obviously I should have my own fashion blog.
Perfect.
And that was definitely a lot of fun. I did that for a couple of years. It's so much work. I mean, as you know, like having this side hustle, especially this podcast, right? Like it's all the editing and thinking of the content,
right,
and that sort of thing. And I think that when I was kind of going through all the job transitions, I kind of, eventually realized like, okay, I don't have the creative headspace to do this. And so kind of put it to the side, but, still whenever I get the opportunity, like take the photos, post it on the Instagram, like would love to kind of come back to the blog. But I think that I would like to expand beyond just style and kind of more talk about like, kind of more like relationships, like, with people, not just like, my partner, but also kind of with my friends and kind of how to build like meaningful relationships, that sort of thing. So I've been kind of thinking about that.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, I would love to write more about that. But I think I'm kind of waiting to kind of be in a place where I feel like I have like the time to dedicate consistently to it.
Yeah, you can't half-ass two things, right?
Yeah,
or that's what it would be.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's really cool. So, why do you enjoy inspiring others to follow their dreams? Like, what does it feel like on a day-to-day basis of doing that? Like, that must be pretty fulfilling.
It's honestly amazing. Like, I think that when I made the transition from engineering to recruiting in my early 20s and just realizing like, wow, like, like coaching people, like coaching like young minds to kind of believe in themselves and, like reach for the stars and like get them, and not just kind of like in that, kind of touchy-feely, like believe in yourself, but also like very practically like, hey, like if you're serious about pursuing this career, like here are the steps that you can do. And if you put in the hard work, like there will be a path for you.
Right.
It was just like really amazing to feel like, wow, like this is my job, and it wasn't just for me, at least with recruiting, it wasn't just about like finding, great employees from Microsoft. Like I think that every student that I had an interaction with, even if I kind of came to the conclusion, like
maybe it wasn't right,
like, maybe this isn't going to be a right fit, or maybe you're not just quite ready yet, making sure that every student that I came into contact with, like had a good next step, had like could have a plan for what they should do next. Like I think just kind of helping someone bring clarity like to their lives when they're just feeling a little lost, especially like in such a competitive society that we have here, especially with tech. It just, it's seeing the relief on someone's face, like having those conversations in real time, seeing them make that realization, like, hey, it's going to be okay. My life is going to be okay. Just felt so good. And I think that I wouldn't have been able to do that too without my own ups and downs, like being able to say like, hey, like I was sitting where you were sitting.
Mm-hmm.
I've like
literally,
literally like I've come out the other side. Like no matter what happens, like you just kind of, you have to pick yourself up. You got to, if something bad happens, let yourself feel bad, but you like have to keep moving forward. And yeah, I don't know what it is. It feels so wonderful to be able to, build someone else's confidence up.
Yeah. And I feel like making people realize that there's that next step and you can take action items and you can do it as long as you put the effort behind it. I think that's like an important skill to learn too. And that you can do that multiple different times for multiple different things that you're interested in.
Yes.
I think that's really cool. So you are such a positive influence and you're always encouraging them and increasing their confidence. Where do you feel like you get that from? Why is that? Like,
Yeah, it's I mean, I was very, very lucky growing up, and I had a mom and dad that were very, very affirming. And even though, like, I kind of joke, like, yeah, like I'm the child of Vietnamese immigrants, and there's kind of a lot of like pretty fun stereotypes that come along with that. But, my parents were very adamant about, you know, raising my brother and I to be very independent people. Like, and they really lived that. They were like, you know, there's always this kind of stereotype that, like, you know, Vietnamese parents will keep their children very sheltered, keep them close. And like, there's really wonderful things that come from that, like having a close relationship with your parents and putting family first. But I think also kind of being really sheltered can kind of, you know, cause some things down the line. And I think my parents were, you know, really, really adamant about like, hey, like we want our children to like
see things.
Yeah, see things, like take control of their own lives, like support themselves. Like that was really important to them. And my dad was very affirming. Like, I just remember my dad, like, you know, and I was a really competitive young child. They didn't really push me. I think they just kind of saw that I was pushing myself. And I actually think, they were kind of concerned that I was like a little too competitive, a little too, you know, so
pushing yourself too hard at a young age.
So they were really good about kind of providing that balance of like, hey, Kim, like, you know, we love that. We love to see you work hard. We're very proud of you, but we want you to know that like, no matter what, we'll always be proud of you. And like, you know, we just want you to try your best. And that's all we can ever ask of you.
Right.
And just being really affirming and loving. And I think that is just such like an important foundation to anybody's childhood, you know? So I think that because I had that great foundation, it kind of just set me up. Like for adulthood to just kind of, you know, believe in myself. Like I never, you know, my parents never told me there was nothing I couldn't do, you know, and like wholeheartedly like followed through with that.
And that's important at like a molding mindset.
Yes. And so definitely like when I'm kind of interacting with students and I see them kind of feeling down on themselves, it's like, you know, that comes from somewhere, and kind of getting to the root of like, hey, like, why do you feel that way? And kind of trying to like, you know, if the session kind of allows, like really kind of getting to the heart of like, hey, like, why are you feeling down? Like, why don't you feel like you can do this? Like, let's
explore
kind of
that.
get into that. Yeah.
It's kind of a branch of therapy.
For sure. I actually would, you know, one of the things about going to the UW is that, or well, working at the University of Washington is that, you can kind of take, depending on like what's available, you can take classes. And so I actually would love to kind of go back and maybe explore psychology or therapy.
Yeah. And that's so healthy. And I love that. I feel like what the millennial generation does well is being like really conscious of where things come from and why, and trying to be better.
Absolutely.
So I think that is a really good quality about us. So you are, let's see. So you are a really confident person yourself. So how do you find that internally?
It's especially, I don't know, this one's like kind of a hard one because honestly, it's not like,
I know you'll always have, like everyone has doubts about it. It's not perfect.
Exactly.
We don't want to paint that picture either, but
exactly. Cause I will say, like, especially 2018, particularly, I'm technically basically on my third job in the last year and a half. Right.
Yeah.
And so that kind of comes with its own ups and downs for sure. And I think that you just have to, I think that like when I'm feeling really down, one, having a great support system is like number one for sure. Having really good friends, having really good partner, being able to just like articulate like why I'm feeling bad or why I'm feeling discouraged, and really trying to like understand like, okay, like what are those fears that I'm having? And just for me, being able to say them out loud and say them very clearly. And just, it helps me kind of face them and like understand where that's coming from. And then basically like hatch my escape plan from that. Right. So if it's like, you know, I think one of the things that one of my best friends helped me understand about myself was that, especially in a work setting, one of the things that causes me a lot of anxiety is when I feel trapped. I think a lot of us kind of feel like, you know, trapped in our jobs. But for me specifically, like one of the things that will actually cause me panic is when I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, like there's nothing I can do. Like I'm going to be stuck here forever in this terrible situation.
And it's hard to get out of that like it's mental set once you're there. It's like a dark hole.
Yes. And so sometimes when I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I do not know like what I'm going to do, kind of going to her and having her sit down and be like, okay, let's sit down and talk about all the other things that you could be doing. Let's talk about having kind of like an escape plan, like a plan B. is just really comforting, and like actually having the multiple career paths, because sometimes I do doubt my choice in, it's like, okay, like I've done engineering for 3 years. Okay. I've done recruiting for 3 years. It's not kind of enough time to really consider yourself senior in those positions. And sometimes I'm like, oh, like, did I make a mistake by not really like going deep into like one of those? And then one of the things that she kind of pointed out to me was like, hey, actually, like, now you have these 2 different options that you have like double the choices.
Right.
As you're kind of coming up with your escape plan or whatever, you know?
Right.
And so at least like that for me, like in the last year and a half, as far as kind of like, having that internal confidence of like, hey, it's going to be okay. I think it's just knowing, for me at least, look, like there are all these options that you could do, and, you're not going to be stuck. I think that's kind of been like my personal mantra for the last.
You're never stuck unless you kind of make yourself stuck. Like if you have the action plan to get out, then you can get out.
Yeah.
You also mentioned talking it out loud with other people. I think that's also good sometimes, because sometimes I get in this mindset where I get low on myself. But then when I tell other people, they're like, that's not what anyone sees.
Yeah.
Getting
to have someone like reality check you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's important too, of talking to other people. So what tips do you have to ward off that doubt? I guess we kind of went over them, but do you have any other tips?
I think you kind of mentioned earlier about kind of our generation being kind of like the self-awareness generation. And I love that about our generation. I'm actually like really interested to see kind of like where that takes us as far as, as we grow into parents and that sort of thing. But I think that is kind of the number one thing, is like practicing that self-awareness, being really honest with yourself about like how you're feeling and why you're feeling that. And like nobody's perfect, and everyone has kind of, these unbecoming parts of their personality, and just being okay, being like, okay, like knee-jerk reaction, like I did this thing that's like not that great, or I thought these thoughts that aren't that great, or I like, kind of lashed out because I was feeling, some type of way. And I think just really understanding like, hey, like this is who I am, this is where I came from, this is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, is so important to just having that foundation in order to understand yourself, so that you can kind of make the best plan for yourself as far as what you want to do next with whatever situation you're in.
Right. That's a really good one. I feel like you answered some of my other questions, because that's awesome. So how you are a successful person, and we talk about hitting your goals. How would you recommend others? Like, how would you recommend reaching that final goal if someone came to you and wanted to hit a career path?
Yeah. I think being really aware of like what's motivating you and why you want that goal is really, really important. And I think that, as far as, especially when it comes to like career advice, like there's a lot of practical things that you can do, which, is wonderful, right? Like study up on interviews, do the networking, that sort of thing. But I think for me, what I always try to pick up on is like, hey, like, why are you doing what you're doing? And like really internalizing that, so that you understand like what is the point of you putting all this hard work in, and like that's going to keep you going. Like I think that would be kind of my number one tip. And like the number one thing I think I see a lot of people struggling with is just kind of like making sure that they internalize like their reasons, right?
Right.
Why they're doing what they're doing.
Self-awareness 2019. That should be like the name of this podcast. Well, that's awesome. So is there anything else I didn't touch on that you feel like you wanted to talk about today?
I mean, you know what? Honestly, I would just love to come back, and we can kind of just open up.
We can always open up the new doors.
Yeah. So y'all listening, let us know what else it is that you might like to hear. Yeah.
And what are you looking forward to this week? I always like to wrap it like that, like a positive thing personally that you're looking forward to.
Well, I'm pretty excited because I have a couple different alumni/friends coming back to the UW to kind of give their own presentations on like we have a negotiation workshop coming up, and kind of how to get prepared for interviews. And I'm really excited to kind of provide more resources to our students this week. So it's going to be a busy week, but like stoked to kind of, try some new things.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to, I'm moving to a new place. I'm looking forward to buying a couch, as adult and layman as that is. I'm looking forward to it.
We will go test out some couches.
I know, exactly. Okay, so how can people follow you?
Well, I am Hello Kim Nguyen. I spell my last name Nguyen like W-I-N, like I'm a winner. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook with my blog, Hello Kim Nguyen. And my blog currently is hellokimnguyen.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.